seated. I am just thankful that you all are here today. You could have been anywhere today. Many of us passed many churches to come to Rise and Fun. I passed several Church of Gods on my way here. And I realize you could have stopped at any other of those Church of Gods or Baptist or Methodist or Church of Christ or any of those churches you may have passed. So I am grateful you decided to be here. It means a lot to me that you're in church with us, and I don't take it for granted that you have come to this place, and we just honor you today and are excited to see what that you're here and what God's going to do in your life. If you have your Bibles today, turn to the book of Nehemiah. Hey, let me invite all of you back tonight. We have church at 6 o'clock. I will be preaching a message titled, To the Troubled. To the Troubled. So be here tonight as your pastor will pour his heart out. If you've been going through some stuff, fighting some battles, you've been carrying a load too heavy, then you want to be here tonight for the message, To the Troubled. In the book of Nehemiah, you're going to turn to chapter 6, and you're just going to hold your finger there, put your ribbon there, because we're going to go through those verses together little by little. I want to conclude the series that I've been preaching on Nehemiah over the last, this is the fourth part, And He Prayed. Over the last 3 weeks, we've seen the power of prayer as Nehemiah took on an assignment from the Lord. He made the plans of the assignment. He overcame opposition both mentally and physically. He prepared to work. He prepared to fight. But most importantly, we can see that on every step in Nehemiah's path, every step to fulfilling his mission, Nehemiah prayed for direction, provision, and protection. Now, in chapter 5 of Nehemiah, we see that while getting close to the completion of the wall, it's almost finished. Nehemiah had to deal with a situation of injustice involving the poor and their provisions and their treatment. And then as we move into chapter 6, we once again begin to see more opposition to the building of the wall. Sanballat and Tobiah had heard that the wall was almost complete. So therefore they plotted and they came up with another scheme. They devised yet another plan to trap and harm Nehemiah. Look now at Nehemiah chapter 6, verse number 2. Nehemiah chapter 6, everybody found it? Verse number 2. It says, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, Come, let us meet together in one of the villages in the plan of Ono. But they thought, Nehemiah said, to do harm to me. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease whilst I leave it and come down to meet you? Yet they sent it to me 4 more times after this sort, and I answered them each time after the same manner. So Sanballat continued to ask to meet with Nehemiah. 4 times he sent letters and he hounded Nehemiah, trying to weaken his ability to say no. You better beware, because the enemy knows how to finally weaken you to the point of disaster. The devil has an assignment to your life, and he's not going to give up until he has weakened you to the point, and he'll nag you, he'll pester you, till you finally get to the point of giving in. You need to recognize this tactic of nagging it. You need to just keep on working. Tell the enemy, just like Nehemiah did, I'm carrying on a great project. I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down to meet you. Why should the work stop so that I can come down to meet with you? You need to be sure that you don't get distracted by the enemy's persistence. Whatever you do, you keep working. Don't you let the persistence of the devil, the nagging and the consistency of the devil to keep you from finishing your task. You keep your hands on the plow and don't look back. Keep going, child of God. You've come too far now. You're almost at the end. Don't you give up. Some Christians are too easily distracted. We're too easily deceived. Don't you know the enemy's trying to get you to stop, even though you may be at 90% completed? Because he knows it is the person who finishes the race that gets the reward. He knows that if you stop at 90% complete, you may see it as a victory, but because you did not finish, you don't get the prize. Don't get distracted. Don't be deceived at the very end. It is important that you finish. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says, let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. I know that it's almost complete. I know that you're starting to do your victory dance, but don't dance yet, baby. You got another brick to lay. Sanballat sends the fifth time, sends a letter. Nehemiah opens it and he reads it. And of course, the next letter, the fifth letter, is filled with fake news. Look at Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 6. It says, wherein was written, it is reported among the heathen, and Geshem saith, that thou and the Jews are thinking about rebelling, for which cause you are building these walls, and that you may be their king according to these words. And thou shalt also appoint prophets to preach of thee in Jerusalem, saying, there is a king in Judah. And now shall it be reported to the king according to these words. Come now, therefore, let us take counsel together. Verse 8 says, then I sent it to them, saying, there are no such things done as you say, but thou fidgest them out of thine own heart. In other words, you are making all of these up out of your own heart. For they all made us afraid, saying, their heads shall be weakened from their work, for be it not done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. Nehemiah opens this fifth letter, and it's full of all of these lies. None of the events reported were true. Kind of like if you watch any news outlet. All of the, listen, Nehemiah says, you have made up every word of the report. Listen, church, the devil will make up lies. He won't even take half truths. He'll make up 100% lies to get you to fall off of your work. You better learn to shake off the lies. Don't you be so gullible. Don't be so easily frightened. Don't you believe every little lie. You still have work to do. And you can expect fake news to be told about you. You can expect to have somebody lie about you and cause the people to think you're going to get in trouble and cause the people to think you're going to be run out of the church. You better shake it off and be just like Nehemiah and realize they're trying to frighten you into believing that you're never going to finish the task. But we know better. We still have work to do. Amen? Oh, they ain't going to lie on Christians. I know church people will lie on you. I embezzled $40,000. I got run out of Alabama Church of God for embezzling in every church I ever pastored. That's what we're told. That's what some of y'all heard. That's what a few people believed. That was the report. 100% lies. They were going to the state office to keep me out of the church. They were taking me and Diane Marshall down because Diane had doctored the books. Oh, you making this up? No, that's what the devil made up. Because the devil did not want to see a church building built that could house more people and the presence of God. The devil didn't want the community to see a church full of victory and debt-free. The devil didn't want to see new ministries birthed. So he began to make up fake news to try to discourage the people to rally around the pastor. And all of us, but the devil is a liar. We just kept on pressing on and kept on believing. Don't you believe the lies? Shake them off. The devil will make up total lies about you, trying to frustrate you, trying to cause you to grow weak, trying to cause you to be afraid of the king and what he's going to do to you. But what did he do? How did Nehemiah handle the situation? The Bible says he prayed again. He asked God this simple prayer: God, strengthen my hands so that I can continue to do your work. When it seems like the lies are stirring up, and it seems like everybody's talking against you, and it seems like the king is going to come after you and charge you with treason, when it seems like you're going to get run out of the church and the state office is going to take your position and file charges against you and the clerk, you better keep on going. When you know the truth, don't you worry about a lie. When you know it ain't no truth to the situation, don't you dare believe. Don't you let the lie of the devil stop you when you know what truth is. Church of God in Rise and Find, we're nearing a great breakthrough. We're nearing a great season of planting and harvesting. I believe we're moving into the season of Amos paradigm, where the reapers are going to overtake the harvesters are going to overtake the reapers. I believe in Rising Fund, we're getting close to a breakthrough of unknown and unexperienced proportions. And of course, the enemy's going to fight us. And of course, the enemy's going to try to deceive us. And of course, he's going to lie. He does not want you to work and finish your assignment. He does not want you to complete your task, because your souls are going to be ministered to, and you're going to be turned into ministers. And out of your brokenness, you'll begin to minister to those who are broken. Out of your despair, you're going to minister to those who are in despair, because there's power in you. Don't you lay down your hammer. Pray again. You keep working. Keep praying that God's going to strengthen you. Keep praying that God's going to allow you to finish. Keep praying, because we are almost there. But look at chapter 6, verse 10. Now the enemy gets desperate. Afterward, I came into the house of Shemaiah, and Shemaiah was shut up, and he said, listen to what he says. Let us meet together in the house of God. Let us meet within the temple. Let us shut the doors of the temple, for they will come to slay thee. Yea, in the night will they come to slay thee. Listen, this is supposed to be a wise man's counsel. This is supposed to be a godly friend of Nehemiah. Come on, we better hide out in the temple so that you don't get killed. Verse 11 says, Nehemiah says, should such a man as I flee? And who is there that, being as I am, would go into the temple to save his life? I'm not going to go in. And lo, watch verse 12. I perceived that God had not sent him, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me, for Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Therefore was he hired, that I should be afraid and do so and sin, and that they might have a matter of an evil report, that they might reproach me. My God, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to these their works, and on the prophets and the rest of the prophets, that they would have put me in fear. In the translation that I read on my daily, it says that the prophets would intimidate me. Nehemiah goes to visit Shemaiah. He's invited to go inside the temple, lock the doors as a safe place. He's told, hey, there's a group of people coming to kill you, and you're being threatened. But listen, this would have been easy for Nehemiah to believe. He's been intimidated. He's been pestered. He's been threatened. Why should Nehemiah believe that his life was at stake? But you know what? Nehemiah said, I'd rather die outside the temple than die inside the temple, because I am not going to bring a curse upon the temple of God, and I'm not going to bring a curse upon the house of God. Listen, some people are at the point of not willing to die for the cause. You've got to know that at some point in your life, you're going to be tested to see if you will die for the cause. John chapter 15, verse 13 says, no greater love is this than a man lay down his life for his friends. You see, we got a lot of people in the church, Sister Robin, a lot of people that are willing to pick up a hammer. They're willing to swing a sword. But when it comes to plotting their own lives, they give up because they're not willing to die for the cause. There's a lot of people that doesn't mind laying some brick and some mortar and repairing the gates. But when it comes to hearing about the plot of their murder, when they begin to hear about their own personal demise, all of a sudden, they're not willing now to fight to the end. They'll do anything to escape dying because they're not willing, they're not that really invested in the work. Are you willing to die for the cause of Christ? Are you willing to lay down your life for the purpose that Jesus has given you? Or will you decide to surrender at 90% complete? Because now it's not just about the wall. Now it's not just about the church, it's about your blood being spilled. Oh, luckily Nehemiah had the gift of discernment. And in verse 12, he began to realize that Shemaiah was hired by Sanballat to entrap him. Listen, we need to use godly wisdom and godly discernment when trying to determine if a person is God's genuine messenger. Some people will claim and believe any report from anybody, and you'll just believe anything that anybody says. Some of you would have been sitting behind locked doors in the temple at the first sound that there was a plot to get you. But listen, you need to understand, you need to use discernment to reveal that the people who are seeking your death are giving you the news and are acting like God's agents are not there for the prosperity of themselves. Some people will prophesy to you because it makes them look better. Uh-oh. God's people need wisdom to judge the character and the loyalty to the person who claims to be speaking on behalf of God. Stop believing anybody wearing a Christian t-shirt. Just because somebody came up to you at Walmart and knew a little bit about you doesn't mean you believe them as a prophet of God because they're wearing a cross and a t-shirt. We're living in a time where people will fall for anyone at any place and at any time. Don't be fooled into giving up your mission because someone seemed to be holy and seemed to be godly. They're only a hired word. They're only a prophet of gain. Everyone, believe it or not, is not looking out for your best interests. Everyone is not really out to protect you. There are a lot of people, wolves, dressed up in sheep's clothing, and they're there for one mission, to destroy your work. Hey, church, use discernment. Yes. Nehemiah began to realize that Shemaiah was hired to discredit him. He was hired to cause Nehemiah to break a tradition and a custom and a law. You better realize the devil will send people in coats and ties to discredit your work. The devil will send people right looking like church folk, wearing a Church of God name tag, speaking in a la 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 ta ta ta. And they're sent by the devil to discredit everything you've done up to this point. Because the devil would rather you stop at 90% than make it to 100. You begin to be careful because Nehemiah begins to say, God, get a hold of these prophets trying to intimidate me. You need to know prophets who intimidate are trying to gain power. Prophets who intimidate are using witchcraft, not godliness. Can I give you a word? Because we have people in our, I bring in people that flow in the gift of prophecy. But you better understand, a prophet that intimidates is a witch, not a prophet. Because the Bible does never tell us a prophet intimidates. As a matter of fact, the New Testament says in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 3 and 4, but the one thing who prophesies speaks to people for their strengthening, their encouraging, and their comfort. Anyone who speaks in tongues edifies themselves, but the one who prophesies edifies the church. So a prophet that comes in to intimidate you and to pressure you is not a prophet of God, because they're not trying to build you up. They're not trying to strengthen you. They're not trying to encourage you. They're trying to trick you and discredit your walk with God. Be careful, child of God. Be careful. Because you should be edified into living closer to God, not intimidated to discredit what you've already done. I better go back. In chapter 6, verse 15. So the wall was finally finished. And it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought in God. Verse 15, Nehemiah finishes in 52 days, if I'm not mistaken, finishes the building of the wall. This was a divine interaction with human will and obedience. Can I just spend about 35 seconds here? Sister Nikki, Sister Sandra had to leave, so if you'll start just getting ready for some music. In our lives, we need to understand if we're going to complete the assignment. Let me just talk about a church body. But see, here's what I understand. The Rise and Fall Church of God has been given an assignment. But everybody inside the church has been given their personal assignment that will match the fulfillment of the group assignment. And in order for us to complete the assignment, in order to overcome all the obstacles we face, it takes more than our effort. It takes more than our talent. It takes more than our own ability. It takes also godly intervention. In other words, it takes God and me working together to fulfill the mission of my life. God needs me to work, and I need him to lead. God needs me to be able to be a hammer while he protects me. God is looking for people that will hook up through our obedience and follow the will of God. Church, let us stop trying to complete this assignment in Rising Fund or the assignment in your life in your own ability. We must have a divine interaction. We need God and the Holy Ghost right in the middle of everything we do. We need his power to fight. We need his wisdom to decide and discern. We need his strength to work. We need his peace to rest. We need his encouragement to continue. Realize this morning that God is with his people and he will cause us to complete the task at hand. We as leaders, if you're a leader of this church, let us be courageous. Let us be dedicated. Let us be determined to finish no matter what. Because the people, we need the leaders to lead courageously. And we need the leaders and the people to work with all of their heart. We need the followers to follow the example of courageous leaders. But everybody is doing it at the fulfillment of the interaction of God. And everybody is working with all of their might to finish the assignment. The job at hand cannot be done with just one person. The assignment to win this community, the assignment to win this county, the assignment to win this region doesn't happen with just the pastor. It doesn't happen with just 2 or 3 members. It is something that takes everybody in this room, from Cousin Eddie to Brody to Sister Gail and Brother Eddie to Eric and to Danny, to everybody in this room. It takes all of us building a wall, repairing a gate. But Pastor Chris, I can't work fast enough. It's not working fast enough. It's one brick at a time. Some of us are fighting and defending. Some of us are laboring. But all of us are prepared because we realize that it's the God that's in our life that will bring us to completion. Your completion of assignment in the middle of chaos, in the middle of intimidation, in the middle of persecution, with the middle of hounding and persistent grating on your nerves enemies. It will intimidate your enemies. Your completion will intimidate your enemy. Pastor Chris, all of this time, I've heard the devil. Sanballat and Tobiah has been hounding me. I've been lied on. I've been told by false prophets. I've had all kind of things trying to distract me from the work. But when you finish, all of a sudden the enemy stepped back. And now your enemies are intimidated and your enemies are afraid because they realize the task that you completed was more about the God you serve than your ability. Because when this wall was started, they told Nehemiah, you don't have any way to finish this wall. When he started this wall, they said, even a fox will cause this wall to tumble down. But now, 52 days later, the enemy stands back and is afraid of Nehemiah and the people because they see the God of their lives. You need to realize that when you work into completion, your enemies will be intimidated. As a matter of fact, I guess the old saying, actions speak louder than words. And I don't mean this to sound rude or irreverent, but we got a lot of big mouth people in the church who they talk a lot, but they never finish the wall. I mean, they'll talk about a plan, they'll talk about a mission, they'll talk about a job, but they never get to the work of finishing the wall. And instead of the enemies being intimidated, they become courageous. What do we do, church, when we get to that place? We pray again. We pray again. We ask God to strengthen us. We ask God to turn the enemies turn the curse back on the enemy. Listen, and I don't preach politics, by the way, because we all have different people we vote for, and we all have different people we love, and some of us are yellow dog Democrats, and some of us are blue blood Democrats, or blue blood Republicans. But you know what I've discovered? You know what I've been praying this week of this crazy fake news impeachment? God turned the curse of the Democrats back on themselves. Turn the curse, God, that they're trying to making up all these false allegations allegations and all of these. I mean, they're making up straight out lies, one after another, to bring down a president. Whether you like him or not, that is not the responsibility of a Congress and a Senate to be able to bring down somebody that we elected. So what we need to do is we need to be people that will pray again, that the enemy is cursed and not strengthened. Five Republicans clapped. Every Democrat's mad right now. And you can vote again next year. It's coming up. The impeachment hearing won't even be finished till we vote again. You know what I mean? Listen, you need to remember, if God be for you, who can be against you? And you don't let the enemy intimidate you. You just keep praying. You pray again for strength. You pray again for courage. You pray again for peace. And you pray again for rest. You pray again for power, and you pray for discernment to know the truth. You pray for the ability to finish. You pray that God will reverse the curse that's been in your life. You pray that lies will fall on deaf ears. But whatever you do, you finish. Let God settle among us. Let us have a divine encounter where everybody knows that it's not just us, but it's the God that works through us. Let me close. Let me get out of here. Let us be determined like Nehemiah to finish. Let us be determined like the workers, the builders, the warriors of the wall, and let us people finish. What happened at the end of this great season of working and praying? Revival broke out. I don't have time because of the way the season works out to preach chapter 8 through 13, so read that over the next couple of days. Here's what happens. The people gather, and Ezra reads the book of the law. And the people listened attentively. And as the word of the Lord began to be read, the people began to weep. And as they wept, the people bowed down and they worshiped. They repented. They confessed their sins. And then they came into an agreement and made a new commitment and a new covenant to worship and to serve God and God alone. What happened when the people of God stayed faithful to complete the wall? Revival spread throughout the people. In other words, Rise and Fawn, if we can continue, if we can complete the assignment, Sister Nikki, complete the assignment that we've been given, it opens up for the doors for people to finally receive what God has for them. The completion of the wall, the completion of my task, the completion of our task finally gives an avenue for people to see God and hear the word and repent and believe. I believe we've been praying for revival for our last time. As a matter of fact, you may not remember, but the theme of 2019, it's always on our screen when you come in for Sunday school. It is a year of revival. And if we really want revival, we can't be people that lays down the hammer and lays down the sword, but we keep a sword in one hand, a hammer in the other. We always stay dressed and we're always ready because we will complete. Because our completion will bring revival. We've been praying for. We've got to keep going. Your obedience to complete will bring a renewal of hope. It will bring true restoration. Church, let us pray. Let us finish. Let us continue. Because somebody's going to see God. But Pastor Chris, you don't know how much I'm struggling. God does, and that's why you're going to come back at 6 o'clock, because that's what I'm preaching about tonight. Be here tonight as I preach on To the Troubled. You better stand before I preach To the Troubled right now. Listen, I just